Hey there, everybody. Good afternoon. We are so excited for this live. A few people DM'd me. I'm going to be talking about the 4 types of men you want to be on the lookout for, that you want to avoid if you are indeed looking for a healthy relationship. So this is such an important topic. I'm going to wait a couple of minutes, let some folks come on in. A lot of people are talking about, like, what are the red flags? How do you know someone is for you, or what you need to kind of avoid? So I want to go into 4 types, kind of like, you can say stereotypes, but these are prototypes that you see over and over. And you see a lot of women falling for these types of characters and then wondering why their relationships are going south, aren't working out, so on and so forth. So remember, though, no matter how much I talk about particular types of men, it really always comes back to you as a woman, right? You doing your self-work, your inner work, developing that deep, unconditional self-love. Yeah. Okay. I'm doing something. Okay. My daughter came. That deep, unconditional self-love and those boundaries and all of those things help you to be more attuned to these 4 types that I'm going into. As I told you yesterday, you need your pen and your paper because you will want to write down what to look out for in these types of men. Okay. So number 1. Right, I'm going to go over 4 types. Number 1 that you want to look out for, and you've probably heard this is the emotionally unavailable mate. The man who is emotionally unavailable. All right, the emotionally unavailable man. So what does that look like, right? Because a lot of times people will just say, all right, you think that a person, whether a person is available or not, has to do with whether they're single or not, right? So a person could put themselves out on the market as single, as looking for a relationship, as looking to get married, looking for love. But that does not mean that they are emotionally available. All right. So an emotionally unavailable man is a man who cannot be attuned to your needs, who is so wrapped up in what his agenda is. And his agenda may be just to have a physical relationship with someone. His agenda may be to just have somebody who's there to listen to him and text back and forth or talk on the phone, FaceTime, whatever. His agenda may be somebody who can give him advice and make him feel good from time to time, but where he does not want to reciprocate. So he's not willing to reciprocate. All right. So anytime a person is not available to be observant of your needs, to listen to you when you say what your needs are, to be able to reciprocate and give you the same thing, give you what you're asking for, but also the same thing that you're giving to them, right? So we all know relationships are a give and take. And what tends to happen is a lot of women give. They are on overdrive when it comes to giving. So they start off by giving gifts and giving the access to themselves, either always answering the phone or always answering texts and emails. They give in the form of sometimes money, a lot of times in terms of time. They give in terms of emotional availability. And that is where the biggest gap is. Because a man who is emotionally unavailable is not going to give those same things, right? And you might feel it in subtle ways. So he may not give you the same time that you're expecting or that you're giving. He may not give you access to what he's feeling. So he may not be communicating or telling you. You might notice things about his mood or his behavior, but he's not forthcoming or honest about that when you ask about it. Okay. He may not give in terms of money, right? He may not want to go out or, just invest in, the same little things that you might be investing in, small gift giving, going out or whatever. Okay. So we're looking at a person who has this barrier around them where they're not giving. That is an emotionally unavailable man. This could be for many reasons. It could be because he's already in a relationship and he's not being honest. It could be because he wants to have the benefit of you, either because you are very open and giving and so forth, but because of maybe he's been hurt in the past and he hasn't worked that out with himself, he's just not willing to give in that same way. He doesn't return phone calls. He doesn't return texts or messages. The text messages are sporadic, all right? He could be in a relationship. He may have an avoidant attachment style. So I've talked before about the 3 main types of attachment. One is anxious, where you're like always thinking the relationship is going to end. One is secure, and that's where you have a balanced view where you can trust your partner, you trust yourself, you're not overly anxious, and you're not overly guarded. And then the third type is avoidant. And that is where a person is more guarded. They tend to not want intimacy at the same levels as someone who is secure or even anxious. And they feel kind of threatened by someone who they feel like people might be trying to invade their space and ask more of them than they're willing to give. So that is more the avoidant attachment style. And so that could be one reason why a man might be coming off as unavailable, emotionally unavailable. It could be because he's wrapped up in other goals, his career, trying to, do things financially. He might be on a trajectory that for him doesn't involve that type of emotional intimacy and connection with the woman, although he might want to be with the woman, right? But what happens is he either is not honest about that. So you might be thinking, okay, this is a person I'm looking to build with. I want to see where this is going. But he is not as honest about it. But you see through his actions, again, the actions say more than the words. So he's not following up. He's not responding. He's not communicating in the same way. When you ask questions, he tends to disappear or not answer in a really honest or forthcoming way. I did a live a while ago where I said a lot of times women will say, oh my gosh, men just don't communicate. And what I say is, no, men and women in general, now these are generalizations, they tend to communicate in different ways. A lot of times men are not as verbal with using all of these words and explaining and talking over and over, right? A lot of times women have been socialized to do that. Men may drop little hints and they will show you with their behavior. All right. So I always say it's so important to be observant of how a person behaves, how a man behaves, not just what they're saying. Because they may say what they think you want to hear because, it gets them what they need. And I'm not saying that people do this to be mean. A lot of emotionally unavailable men are not aware that they're emotionally unavailable. They wouldn't describe themselves as that. But as a woman, you really have to tap in and notice the whole picture of the communication, not just the words, not just the part you want to hear because you feel like this is a great catch, right? But the parts where you want to see consistency, or what we call congruence, where the behaviors match the word, matches the follow-up, and the follow-through matches your gut feeling and how you feel about the whole thing. Okay? So that's the first type, the emotionally unavailable man. That man may be unavailable, again, because he's already involved with someone else, because he's at a point in his life, on his life journey, where he doesn't want to get so connected or emotionally involved with the relationship, but he doesn't want to tell the woman because he wants the other benefits of the relationship. Because another reason is he could have an avoidant attachment style. So that's usually some early childhood stuff that he's going to have to work on to determine why he is not as comfortable with emotional intimacy. Okay. So there are many different reasons. In some ways, it doesn't quite matter, right? What matters is if you are looking for a certain type of healthy emotional connection and intimacy where there's honesty and communication in a relationship, that is not going to be the kind of person that you want to be with. So the first type of man, if you want a healthy relationship, that you want to avoid is the emotionally unavailable man. All right. The second type that you want to avoid is the disorganized man, the man who is all over the place, the man who seems really smart perhaps, but for whatever reason, his life is in disarray. And in some ways, at first, you might explain it to different life changes. Maybe he went through a divorce. Maybe he went through job changes or career changes. Maybe he went through different losses, either in his family or financially or whatever. But the end result is he just can't seem to get it together on a day-to-day basis. He's always running behind. Things don't seem like they're organized. He seems like he's always forgetting something or running late or not able to follow through on a promise that he made to you. And he always comes back so well-intentioned, so, feeling good feeling bad and showing his regret because he didn't mean to do it. Right? From his point of view, he had all of the right intentions to be able to, meet his promises and follow up and keep his word. But for whatever reason, because of how his life is constructed, maybe he's putting too much on his plate. Maybe he doesn't have healthy boundaries. A lot of times I'll talk about boundaries with women, but men experience this as well, right? So he's trying to do everything and be everything to everybody, and he's not able to keep the most important promises to himself or to, the person that he's trying to be in a relationship with. He could have, problems since childhood where he never learned how to kind of be organized, to get his life together. And while he may have reached a certain level of success or functioning as an adult, as a man, there's a feeling that like he always missed out on some of his potential. And that's because of that whole thing of being disorganized. So this is the disorganized man, the man that for whatever reason cannot follow through with his promises, who says he has the best intentions, but his life seems to be in shambles, falling apart. You might notice that he is coping in unhealthy ways. So that could be drinking. That could be, a lot of times when we overgive to people and we don't have boundaries, that's an unhealthy way of coping. So trying to give and do everything and be everything to everybody so that you get some form of validation and feel good about yourself. The thing about the disorganized man is if this has been part of his life for a long time, meaning he has been disorganized for years, usually going back at least to when he was a teenager or young adult, that usually has an effect on his self-esteem. And he won't really, it'll be masked, but you'll know that he is coping a lot of times in unhealthy ways because his self-esteem is low. And it creates this vicious cycle. So he will do he will overpromise to people as a way to people please and make them feel good, so that he can feel better about himself. But that just puts him back in that cycle of never having time, being disorganized, not being able to meet the promises that he made to the people that are really important to him. So this is a man who may have all of the best intentions, but he just can't follow through. He just can't get it together. This man may have ADHD, or it could even be a man that just has never learned how to organize his life around his own needs in his own priorities. He's so used to being the one that does everything for everyone else that he never learned how to do an organized life for himself. Now, a man like this might be really nice. A man like this might be really kind. But a man like this will drive you crazy, especially if you are more of an organized type of person. And all of this is assuming, let me back up or pause for a minute, because all of this is assuming that you have and continue to do your inner work to make sure that you are emotionally available, to make sure that you are not your life is not disorganized, right? So all of this assumes that you are doing your inner work and that you're looking for somebody who's equally yoked in that way. All right. So the disorganized man can drive you crazy. And it'll be like he will be a project that you will think you can solve. And if you have those codependency tendencies where you feel like you can fix a person up, it's going to be really tempting to get with the disorganized man, because you will see all of the good qualities, the parts of him that on the surface look like has it together and like he's successful. But the more you spend time with him, the more you get to know him, the more you are going to be the one that's going to have to absorb all of that energy that he has, where he tried to please everybody else and now he's miserable inside, or now he can't get it together inside. Okay, so that is the disorganized man. And this is a man that's going to be tempting for you to want to be with and try to fix up. But I can tell you, it will be a lost cause. Okay. The third type of man that you want to avoid, and this is one where if you have those codependency tendencies, those people-pleasing features, and if you have your own inner wounds, your own inner child wounds, then it's going to be tempting to get with a man like this. And this is the wounded warrior. This is the man who has been through a lot in his life. This is a man who has, he knows hardship, he knows suffering, he knows trauma, very intimately. Usually it's early childhood trauma in the form of some sort of sense of abandonment by somebody important to him, a parent, a family member, that has really affected how he sees himself and sees other people. And the wounded warrior wants so badly to have a healthy relationship, right? It's not a matter of intention. This person wants so badly to have that love that they didn't have early in childhood, usually. But the problem is they haven't seen or developed a healthy model of what that looks like. So for them, even though they want that healthy relationship, at the core is still a lot of distrust of other people. It's a lot of trying to control other people, especially the person that they're getting into a relationship with. It's a sense of too much what we call enmeshment, like always kind of rehashing and talking about and reliving and trying to re-heal over and over that early trauma within the relationship. The problem with that is you've heard so much about trauma bonding. And if you have your own early childhood trauma and you get with someone like that, it becomes this cycle where the main thing that connects you is how much you were hurt early on. And it absorbs so much of your energy trying to heal each other's hurts, trying to, getting triggered by each other, trying to over-explain and apologize. It will always feel to the wounded warrior like you are not doing enough to help them feel safe and connected. All right. So this can be a really draining type of relationship. I told you that the disorganized man will sort of drive you mad. The wounded warrior will leave you feeling drained and exhausted. You will feel like every interaction is an interaction where you just could not. Hold on one second. Okay. You will feel like every interaction is an interaction where everything is on the line. It's so high stakes, right? It can never just be relaxed. Let's have fun. Let's laugh. Like every conversation is so deep. It's about, that trauma and how that person was hurt. You might get dragged into it in terms of talking about how you were hurt as a child. And it tends to leave very little room for growing and looking towards the future. Everything is a reliving and trying to reheal, like we call it. It's a way you're trying to, the repetition compulsion is like you're trying to reheal what happened in the past by repeating it until you get it right. So that is a type or a prototype that you really want to be careful of, because in the beginning, that person can be very seductive. They are so in tune, it can seem like or feel like, to your emotional needs, because they have those needs as well, right? Because they're looking for that love and that reassurance. So they tend to seem very attentive, where the emotionally unavailable man seemed like he was not paying attention. He was off doing his own thing. The wounded warrior in the beginning can feel so validating, because it's like he is so tuned in. You guys are like this, right? He can know your wants and your needs and that need for emotional connection, right? He can understand it can seem like he may feel like an emotionally intelligent man, because it feels like he can empathize with you and understand what you might be thinking or feeling. But the problem is, again, it's very draining. And while they want oftentimes to have a healthy relationship, if that kind of man hasn't done his own work in some sort of therapy, some sort of deep inner child healing and looking at their early wounds, they still have a distrustful view of the world and relationships. So there's always going to be a part where they don't trust you fully. They're trying to test you. They need so much reassurance and validation that it becomes like a never-ending cycle or process. So that is the type of relationship that can be so draining, but I see so many women fall into this one in particular. Again, because that kind of man in the beginning can seem so in tune with you and your needs. All right. So the wounded warrior, you really want to watch out for him. He can make you feel needed. He can make you feel like you are the most special, amazing, lovable person in the world. However, his needs, the well is so deep that you can never fill it up. And you will end up becoming the enemy of this kind of man, because deep down, because he still doesn't really trust people or relationships, it's going to end up to be a self-fulfilling prophecy where he says, you see, you hurt me just like everyone else. Okay. And depending on the type of man, this could kind of play out in a very, very unhealthy way, where he might, once he gets mad, lash out, very aggressively or in a way that's just over the top. Okay. So ladies, please, please, please be careful of the wounded warrior. Okay. So that was type number 3. And the sign of him is he makes you feel really, really needed. Okay. And the 4th type, so we went over the first 3 types. The 4th type of man that you want to avoid if you want a healthy relationship is the narcissist. I know we have all been reading and hearing more about narcissistic tendencies, narcissistic people in society. The narcissistic man is real, and woman too, but now we're talking about men to avoid. And this is the man who is not able to fully see another person as an equal human being. Other people to a narcissist are objects to be used. Objects to be used for their own needs, to make them feel important or validated, to make them feel like they are somebody, that they have a sense of importance and they're needed by someone. here's the thing, like this is the typical toxic relationship that people talk about. And the thing is, most people ask themselves, how did I get into a relationship like this? Once they are like in the throes of trying to extract themselves from a narcissist. The thing is, most people are not going to present like that in the beginning, which is why you have to really, get your spidey senses going as far as your intuition and looking for the red flags. They are not going to present like that. Is anybody going to come up to you with a sign on their head that says, I'm a narcissist, I want to use you, I want you to be my supply, I'm really insecure underneath, and so I'm going to need you to validate me no matter what, right? Nobody is going to have that sign on their head. But what they are going to do is they are going to seem like the perfect man in a slightly different way than the wounded warrior that I just talked about. So the narcissist is going to be charming, going to seem or appear like they have it together, perhaps well-spoken, seeming confident and sure of himself, right? But what happens is you'll find little clues, or you'll observe clues that a lot of how they present is very superficial, overly focused on external, how they appear to others, their physical appearance, their how other people regard them, like they want to be seen as a good person or a smart person or a successful person. Everything is more about appearances to the outside and to other people. So you have to be careful, because what I find is with women, when I ask them what is their list of like what they're looking for in a dream spouse, a dream mate, they tend to have qualities that would go hand in hand with a narcissistic man. So it's always, I want someone tall, dark, and handsome, makes a lot of money, successful, takes care of business, right? All of these things. And there's nothing wrong with those things. But when that is your lead off on your list, then you're going to be looking for people that present with those qualities. And usually, if those are the most important qualities, you're going to attract a narcissist. Bottom line, I'm not going to lie. If those are the most important qualities, right? If your list is all about the external and the superficial, it's not about sort of how they were raised. What are their values? How do they communicate? What have their past relationships been like, right? If you're not looking at things like that, and you're looking at tall, dark, handsome, rich, quote unquote, high value man, then you are a prime target for a narcissist. And a narcissist feels like they feel like other people owe them, right? They're very perceptive in terms of other people's insecurities and weaknesses, and they play on them. So the same thing that they might compliment you on in the beginning of the relationship to make you feel good, that'll be the thing that they use to pull the rug from under you and and start to tear down your self-esteem when they feel like they're losing you. So they won't just let you go. A narcissist will try to keep you hooked by starting to tear down your self-esteem little by little and making you feel insecure and questioning yourself to where you feel like you need to be with that person, because then they'll switch it up. Once they break down your self-esteem just a little bit, they'll then start to build you up a little bit to keep you hooked, right? It's all a cycle where you are, as people say, their supply, and they're not going to let you get away. So they keep this push-pull thing going on so that you're always near enough to them where they could pull you back in. And this is where I tell women, remember I said all of these 4 types of men that I'm describing, a lot of this depends on you doing your own inner work. You making sure that you're not just focused on external qualities, right? Like how you look, right? That's important. But what about who you are on the inside? What about being the best person you can be, learning to communicate in healthy ways, learning to have a strong spiritual and emotional foundation in your life, right? So all of those things are important for you, because when you start looking for a healthy mate, If you haven't done your work, you're going to attract those unhealthy people. So with the narcissist, again, the women that I see most falling victim to the narcissist are the ones who their dream list is made up of superficial qualities, and there are no qualities where they're looking deeper into who this person is, this person's relationship history, this person's emotional health. How do they handle anger and frustration? How have they coped with life? Are they willing to get help if they need it, right? These are all important things. And the key thing that a narcissist will do is look for your vulnerabilities. So if you have found yourself, it's a whole different video for us to go deep into it, but getting out of a narcissistic relationship. But if you are in a relationship with a narcissist and you want to get out, one of the key things that you have to do is start building yourself up within, so that when they start trying to play on your vulnerabilities and trying to make you feel insecure, tear down your self-esteem, tell you you look horrible, you're stupid, nobody will ever want you, I'm the best thing that ever happened to you, you should be happy that I even wanted you, right? They'll start to do those things. Again, they will never do those things in the beginning because you wouldn't go with them. You wouldn't be with them. But they will start to do those things over time. And they're playing on your vulnerabilities. So one of the key things you have to do is continue to build up yourself, your self-esteem, your sense of who you are as a person, your knowledge that you can be okay even if you're alone, right? I always tell women that the best way to attract a healthy relationship is to know that you're going to be okay by yourself, right? If you're too needy, if you're too desperate, and I'm not talking about wanting or desiring a relationship or love, right? We all want that. But if you come across as desperate, you are going to attract one of these 4 types of men, either the narcissist, the wounded warrior, the disorganized man, or the emotionally unavailable man. So the key is to start building from within, whether you're in a relationship or not. All right. So that was a brief overview. Once again, if you just joined, the 4 types of men you want to avoid: the emotionally unavailable man, and you will be able to tell that he is one of those because his actions don't match his words. He's all into you according to his words, but his actions, there's no follow through. He disappears for days at a time. He ghosts you, and then comes back on the scene. Then there's as I said, the disorganized man. His life is just in shambles. He has poor boundaries. So he's trying to do everything for everyone else. And then when it comes, back, oh yeah, hey, Kofia. Yes, go back and watch from the beginning. But when it comes to his own life and the intimate relationships in his life, he can't follow through because he's exhausted and he's been spread thin. So he's disorganized. The third one is the the wounded warrior. A lot of unhealed trauma that he's trying to heal through his relationships. And it is just exhausting and draining. And you will never be enough to heal his distrust of relationships. He's got to do his own healing. And then finally, the narcissist, who will not appear like that in the beginning, but I will say you are vulnerable to attracting narcissists if your dream list of characteristics that you're looking for is all external stuff, all the superficial stuff, and not more of who this person is. What are their values, how they behave and cope with stress? What is their level of being able to reciprocate your needs and not just expecting things from you, right? So those are the 4 types, ladies. Tell me what you think. Have you run into men like this, right? Are you willing to look at what are some of the red flags and be willing to be direct with men in communication, because what I find is a lot of times women will notice these things, but then they won't say anything, and their intuition is telling them, but then they shut that intuition off. And they're like, oh, well, they'll point to all of the positive things that person is, while they ignore the red flags. And it's interesting because in general, men tend to do the opposite. They don't ignore the red flags. Yes. So Kofia, you said, I've run into a narcissist and my spirit told me to run. Yes. See, a lot of times, people will get that. Their spirit will tell them. Because what it is with the narcissist, the communication and the interaction, it starts to feel really superficial. Like somebody could be smiling and looking at you, but you feel like they're looking through you. They're not really listening. They're not really like connected to you on a real deeper level. It's almost like it's the opposite of the wounded warrior. So the wounded warrior is like too in tune, where you're like, oh my gosh. And the narcissist is more of a superficial, like they look through you rather than at you. So that's so good, Kofia. You said you ran. And you have to listen to your intuition like that. But you also have to check yourself, because again, if your whole list of what you're looking for in a man is a list of superficial things, then you're on target. You have a sign on you that says, narcissists, come to me. Yes. Yep. Like super surface. And when you really break down your list of like, what does a healthy partner look like? It needs to include a lot of things around their emotional well-being, their consistency, what their relationship with their family has been like. And if it was a bad relationship, what have they done to work on healing? Because you don't want them bringing those negative, views of people and relationships into their relationship with you. And that's where you get into the wounded warrior, right? You want to look at how a person's behavior is consistent with what they say, and how they're able to manage their own life, right? Let alone trying to bring you into it. And then it becomes a whole train wreck. That's the disorganized man. And then finally, as I said, with the emotionally unavailable man, he could be already with somebody, or he could be deciding that his career, other things are the most important thing right now, or he could have an avoidant attachment style. In any case, he's usually not upfront with you about it. So he's telling you he wants one thing, but his actions and behaviors say something else. Okay, so I hope this was helpful to you. The 4 men to avoid if you want a healthy relationship. I go into more detail with this in my book, The Boundaries to Bliss Blueprint for Women Who Are Finally Ready to Win at Love. Is that you? If so, go to the link in my bio. You can pre-order at a low price with tons of bonuses that you get with your pre-order. And the book is officially dropping on January 1st. So get your pre-order in, get yourself right for the new year, right? Know not just red flags, but like the prototypes, the types that you want to look out for, so that as you're doing your own inner work and your own healing, you don't get caught up in people that look like they could be good partners, but they're not. And that's the thing. None of these men in the beginning are going to seem like that. It's like through observation and really having your boundaries, really allowing yourself to look honestly at that person. That's when you're going to notice if they fall into one of these types. Okay. All right, ladies, I hope this was helpful, and I will see you next time. Thank you so much for joining.